Good morning. 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 Hey, y'all. Good morning. Hey, Sha. Happy almost Deltaversary tomorrow. I love you. Good morning. Good morning, Di. Good morning, Dana. Good morning, Ronnie. Good morning, Natasha. Good morning, Kanita. Good morning, Antoinette. Good morning, Monica and Erica and Glency and Barbara. Good morning to you all. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is, he has risen. Amen. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I appreciate your presence. As you can hear through my voice, he has risen, and yet I am tired. Amen. As you can see, I had to throw on my Black Church Power hat, and we're gonna have an abbreviated time this morning. Those of you in the clearing, we're gonna head over in probably about 15 minutes, because the babes, the darlings, the young ladies want to go to the church house in the morning. My goodness, on today. And so I want to, I want to go with them and be there, and be present. You didn't see the link pop up on Facebook. I don't know what's happening on Facebook. I don't know what's happening. It's all a lot, all a lot. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to first just thank all of you for being present virtually. Thank the Pink Robe Chronicles community and the clearing. Let me tell you something. The way that you all show up, and I got to meet so many of you all who live in the Chicagoland area, and we took pictures. And when you told me your names, I screamed because I see your names, but I don't see your faces here, of course, unless you're in the clearing. And then not everybody in Pink Robe Chronicles is in the clearing. So it was just good to see you all. I won't belabor the point because I know that some of you are preparing to engage in your rituals on today. So I want to move us right along. I know, Jamie. Pray for your girl, because the heaviest days for the Black church is Christmas, Mother's Day, and Easter. But I did buy them Easter dresses this year because I'm sorry, y'all. I'm gonna be in all of the feelings. And all of the feelings, and I'm gonna jump. I feel like I feel like I'm getting ready to be jumping from place to place, and that's okay. I just want to tell you what I'm doing. I'm not making an excuse for it. I want to tell you what I'm doing is just the leading and the following. I want to talk today about, I'm going to jump right back to that story, but I want us to come from, we're talk about really John 20, the version. It's in John 21 and John chapter 20, verses 1 through 18. And I paused a second because a few years ago, I preached a sermon that I'm coming back to today called Weeping and Rising, Weeping and Rising, Weeping and Rising. And I paused, Jamie, because I just felt weepy. I felt very weepy in the midst of, in the moment where many, or at least our faith, I won't even say our faith. It has been interpreted for us through many and given to many that this is the day that we should lay all of our cares down, because Jesus has risen, and because he has risen, we can rise too. Because he has risen, we sort of metaphorically, everything that we are experiencing can be, we have the power over it. I purchased the girls' Easter dresses because I didn't know then, and what just became clear now, I guess we'll just move into it this way. What just became clear now is I was weepy, just weepy at how fast they are growing. They are teenagers now, not preteens, not elementary. We have a driver and one who is about to start taking driving classes. They are long gone from the age. They never did get Easter baskets because that was just one capitalistic thing that I was like, I can't do it. Santa Claus is the only, it's enough. But they did, but Easter dresses was a thing because I grew up in an age, in a time with generations of Black women. I grew up in a home with four generations of Black women. My great grandmother, my grandmother, my mother, and myself. From a generation and a time and a place where respectability governed our comings and goings as it related to church. And so getting an Easter's dress, getting my hair pressed, getting Easter shoes was a ritual. I would want clothes like some of my friends who didn't necessarily go to church. Their Easter outfits was like cool jean, like they got Guess overall outfits, or some other kind of fly dopeness, some fly Nikes or something, to wear, they're during the day, because after church, you was going somewhere else. And not me, friend. My grandmother was like, no, you got clothes enough. We getting Easter clothes. Your Easter clothes are church clothes. So I remember, I'm just going to remember my way into this here text. I remember, Jesus. I remember my first pair, we call them pumps. My first pair of 9 West pumps. They were black patent leather and they were hot pink on the inside. And my first suit, I remember when I transitioned from the frilly dresses and when I transitioned to my first 2-piece suit. It was a powder blue suit with a powder blue skirt and a white blazer, a powder blue blazer with like white and powder blue stripes. And I had some white stockings, honey, because we had moved on from tights. But I had some white stockings with these black patent leather, 9 West pumps. And so I was in the mood as I was in a store 2 weeks ago, and I saw these dresses. And even though I have not been going to the church house because you are my gathering, there was something that compelled me. I wanted to remember. It was nostalgic to see how they have graduated from these frills and these kinds of dresses to the young women that they have become. And when they woke me up this morning, because as you can see, I was still asleep. I could hear Free piddling around getting ready, and I said, "What you doing?" And she said, "I'm going to church." I'm going to church. And I said, oh, wow, who you going with? And she said, my sister is supposed to go. But if she doesn't go, I'm going. There is a way in which I'm getting into this, that there is a way in which for free, church represents community. And on this Easter Sunday, she is recalling all the ways in which historically our family has attended church on Easter Sunday, where we have engaged in the corporate celebration that Jesus took death upon him, that Jesus died amidst a Roman Empire, and let's not forget a religious hierarchical tradition, a religious leadership that were not interested in seeing, in understanding, in receiving the revelation of his coming into the world. They were not interested in acknowledging him as the Messiah. He did not fit the bill. He did not fit the characteristics. And even though there were some, I'm just going to tell the story. I'm going to close my eyes and just sort of tell the story. I've not even read the text, but for those of you who have a text, it's John 21 through 18. And however I get there is how I'm going to get there. And even the pulling up the weeping and rising, and however I get there is how I'm going to get there. That's a sermon in and of itself. Why? Because as I've already posted on this week, y'all, we spend so much time trying to figure out new ways to get into an old story, trying to figure out how to be innovative with telling a story that's thousands of years old. What is my lane? How will I come to it? When in reality, all we need to do is to tell the story. We overcome somewhere is written by the power of what our testimony. Testimony is a story. So we just need to tell the story. And I know, as well as many of you know, the story that is committed to us, that we all know it, right? We all get to it. We all have it. We have it rehearsed in a way. My. We have it rehearsed in a way, but we come to this particular Sunday because we want hope. We want hope. And early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw the stone had been removed from the entrance. And so she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb, and both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. And he bent over and looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in. And then Simon Peter came along behind him and went straight into the tomb. He saw the strips of linen lying there, and as well as the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. And the cloth was still lying in its place, separate from the linen. And finally, the other disciple who had reached the tomb first also went inside, and he saw and believed. And they still did not understand from Scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. And then the disciples went back to where they were staying. Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. And as she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. And they asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "And they have taken my Lord," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." And at this, the story says, at this she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. Jesus. And he asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." And Jesus said to her, "Mary." And she turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. And Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them I am ascending to my Father and you, Father, and your Father, and to my God and to your God." And Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "I have seen the Lord." And she told them that he had said these things to her. I want to go back up here. Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you've carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will go get him." And Jesus said to her, "Mary." And she turned toward him and cried out, "Rabboni." Y'all, I saw this and I thought, absolutely. I'm not fitting to preach on this today because essentially we preached on this on Palm Sunday. But just to be clear, without women preachers, we would have no knowledge of the resurrection. Shout out, I think I just found out on Tanya Bryan's Facebook page. And so shout out to you for reposting that. Yeah. Without women preachers, we would have no knowledge of the resurrection. For we read in this text that it was yet again the women. One more time for the women. It was the women that prepared him for the burial. It was the women that financed the ministry. It was the women who are the first evangelists. Weeping, 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 and rising. This is for as long as I can remember, I have been in this tension of weeping and rising. That Saturday when many of us, when tradition says, is the holy and quiet Saturday, the Saturday between the display of passion and resurrection, a reminder that the descent to hell is material and fleshy, that the demonic has a face. It is a reminder that God is often silent in the moments that rock us to the core. It is a reminder that the death of someone or something must always precede transformation. It is a reminder that, as Audre Lorde tried to tell us, our silence will not protect us, and that we will never dismantle the master's house with the master's tool. I labor with early Sunday morning. I labor with it. I battle with the ideal of a physical occurrence beyond bodily understanding, with a salvific moment that places one as a ransom for many, with a cosmological understanding of another life, of a second life, of a I may not get there with you, but I've been to the mountaintop epistemology. I too, though, like Mary, am stuck weeping outside the tomb. Oh, friends, and I know that there are many of you who may be assembled right here. You may have got the virtual church fan or pulled your virtual whip up into this parking spot here at the Pink Robe Chronicles because you need reprieve and you want to shout. And this is the day that the Lord has made, and we want to celebrate. And some of you are on your way to the church house. And baby, it is a full production. The music is going to be pumping. This is no judgment. I'm just saying the music is going to be pumping and rocking. And baby, you know, all of the frills, all of the things will be happening, and the lights will be flashing, and the smoke will be smoking, and the pews will be tight, and all of the things. You know, I just want a little Easter speech from the babies. Let me keep going where I'm going. But here's the thing. I'm waking up weeping, standing at a tomb, an empty tomb, not quite sure how to feel. Not quite sure how to feel. Walk with me for a minute. Walk with me, if you will, for a minute. We enter this text 2 days after Jesus, who I identify as a political revolutionary who led a political movement. This is where some of you are getting off the bus right now. Because, Melva, why you always got to politicize something? Baby, the personal is the political. There is nothing in this world, nothing in this part of time that is not political. And if you don't think that the gospel is political, I want to tell you that you've been misinterpreting it. I want to tell you that you've been fed down a watered down version of Jesus the Christ. If you don't think that the gospel was a political indictment against the empire and against the Jewish religious leadership, I'm not quite sure what you've been reading. But here we are. Here we are, that this revolutionary that led this movement has been lynched on a Roman tree. All four gospels agree on one vital detail, that early in the morning, while it was still dark, the women went to Jesus' tomb where Joseph of Arimathea and others laid him. And in the Johannine account, only Mary Magdalene, the one who poured out expensive oil from her alabaster box and wiped Jesus' feet, the one the male disciples deemed unfit, unworthy, uncomely, appears at the tomb. She will ultimately become the first witness to the risen Jesus. And upon her arrival, y'all, she finds that the stone had been removed from the tomb. How could this be? She runs and tells Simon Peter and the other disciple, and they both run to bear witness. Upon entering, they find only the residue, the remains. Listen, the remnant. That is a sermon title. The residue, the remains, and the remnant. That is a sermon title. I'm giving that to somebody. The residue, the remains, and the remnant. The linens, the cloths that wrapped Jesus's body, confused and confounded. The two disciples returned to their homes. They left Mary at the tomb. And verse 11 says, but Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. I need to take a real life pause there. Yeah, just for a minute, I need us to catch to this real. But Mary stood weeping outside of the tomb. We do not find her rejoicing. We don't find her shouting. Early one Sunday morning, he got up with all power in his hands. Let me put a pin right here because I want to be clear. That is my tradition, baby. I am Baptist. That is my tradition. And I want to tell you the tension, because I don't necessarily want to sit in here Easter sermon that don't say that at the end. It's the tension. Yeah, I am a walking contradiction. Yeah. And I'm saying that one thing that I'm recognizing, and not one that I'm just recognizing, but something that's coming to me, what we as Black folk do, we are really good at the remix, because we've had to remix so much of the West's history. We have had to, in order to survive, in order to see ourselves not as objects but as subjects, we've had to remix. So there is a way that we celebrate even when death is upon us. It's like why on Good Friday services for us, it is so very hard for many to stay in the grief of someone who has been murdered. We run a rush so quickly to the celebration. And this Friday, when I was sitting and just listening even to some of the songs that were being rendered in both spaces where I preached, I was being moved, but I was fighting the tension in my body, to want to feel the song and wanting to stay in the moment of eulogizing Jesus. But then I started to think, Is this a survival mechanism? Is this the way that Black folk and maybe other marginalized folk have to take what they see, the pain of what we experience, the pain of what we see, and in order to put one foot in front of the other, we have to remix it. And so when folk would say that we should be crying, somehow we are celebrating. I don't know. This is a thought that I'm moving through. This is just something that I'm trying to figure out how not to talk about it in a way that that places our tradition in a problematic light. I'm trying not to judge my own tradition. I'm trying not to judge what I've grown up on, what has sustained me, what has allowed me to even become, what has been the foundation, what has been the springboard of my own spiritual development. And I don't want to just throw it all in the trash. I don't want to just say that we backwards preachers and we can't understand and we don't know. I want to suggest that maybe we have the ability. Maybe, yes, thank you, Latasha Ramsey, that we, in the words of Dr. Emily Towns, we are resilient grievers. I just want to say that if you are listening, if you are here, if you're feeling a way, that in no way it is not a judgment, it is just an acknowledgement that maybe the key is that we got to be doing both things at once. Sometimes we hand off one thing because we don't really want to deal with the grief. But anyway, we find Mary here. And like I said, she's not shouting. She's not rejoicing. We don't find her running. We find her where? She is stuck at the tomb. It says she is standing outside of the tomb. Sometimes, many times, all the time, right now, in real time, we should be stuck outside because there are many tombs. There are people who have awakened this morning only to hear the news that maybe the one who led them, that the shepherd that was leading them, is no more on this side of time. They are outside of the tomb. There are siblings all across this world and all kinds of world political upheaval. Our siblings in Haiti, our siblings in the Congo, in the Sudan, and our siblings in Gaza, our siblings all over the world, some right in your own very neighborhoods who are stuck outside the tomb. Oh, those who don't have to look far or read a story about one who was killed 2,000, 3,000 years ago, but for someone who was in their own family, their own son, their own daughter, their own ancestor. They are the descendant of one. They are stuck outside of the tomb. They are searching and they are looking and they have come back to the story, and the story does not read the same. Here they are weeping, sobbing. What is this text pointing us to? It is saying to us that we need to be weeping and sobbing. It says that yes, while there is one who has been risen, that it is a moment for us to, yes, maybe celebrate, maybe not necessarily celebrate, but maybe it is an opportunity for us to receive hope. Maybe hope how? Because maybe what he said has really come true. But this is not what Mary is feeling, because remember, Jesus has not only, she doesn't know that he's risen yet. And for her, the only thing I imagine her experiencing is that the one that has been shepherding her is not here. She is already traumatized because she already watched him be lynched. She already stood at the base of the cross. She already watched the nails be pierced in his side. She already watched the crown of thorns be placed on his head. She already watched him take his last breath. She already watched him give him sour wine. She already knew because just a week earlier, she had took spikenard oil and rubbed it on his feet to prepare him for his burial. She already knew, but never in her wildest imagination would she be able to really clearly get the idea that she would walk up on an empty tomb. Where is her Lord? She's too deep in grief to remember Jesus telling her and others that we would need to fulfill the prophecy of the scriptures to die and be raised on the third day. Like me and like some of you, I imagine that she's struggling, like her mind cannot quite adjust, especially when death, when unlikely murder remains in the forefront of her mind. Weeping outside the tomb. Addie Mae Collins, Denise McNair, Carol Robertson, and Cynthia Wesley, 4 little girls lynched inside of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama in 1963 when a bomb planted by the Klan detonated, weeping outside the tomb. 14-year-old Emmett Till lynched for allegedly whistling at a white woman in Money, Mississippi, weeping outside of the tomb. Viola Liuzzo lynched by Klan in March 1965 while helping to shuttle black demonstrators between Selma and Montgomery, weeping outside of the tomb. Amaya Tyree, a 28-year-old trans woman lynched in a motel in Louisiana, said to have been at that time the 7th woman known to be lynched in the U.S., weeping outside the tomb. Marielle Franco, a Brazilian politician, feminist, and outspoken critic of police brutality and extrajudicial killings, lynched by the state after delivering a speech against state-sanctioned killings in the favelas, weeping outside the tomb. Then Stephon Clark, the 22-year-old unarmed black man, shot 8 times in the back while holding a cell phone in his grandmother's backyard in Sacramento, California, weeping outside the tomb. And we know that we can fill this with even more names. We can fill this with the names of Breonna Taylor weeping outside the tomb, and Sandra Bland weeping outside the tomb, and Mike Brown weeping outside the tomb, and Eric Garner weeping outside the tomb, and Renisha McBride weeping outside the tomb, and George Floyd weeping outside the tomb. I can hear the lyrics of the song, the 1970 song by the Funk Groom Wars, Slipping into Darkness. I was slipping in the darkness when they took my friend away. I was slipping into darkness when they took my friend away. Take my mind beyond the dreams. Take my mind beyond the dreams. I was slipping in the darkness. In Mary's grief-stricken state, initially, the empty tomb is not a sign of liberation or of overcoming. Instead, it is a reminder of what remains to be conquered. It is a reminder of all that is wrong with the world, who would come and steal the body of the Lord, who would come and rob the grave of the Messiah, who would plan to build a wall to keep non-citizens of this country out, who would propose that teachers should be armed with guns, who, as we say in our African American colloquial tongue, where they do that at? The text takes a turn. As Mary wept, she bent over to look into the tomb. And as she lamented, not praised, not worshiped, as she cried out in the midst of her frustration, in the midst of her doubt, in the midst of her desperation, in the midst of her uncertainty, in the midst of her overwhelm, in the midst of her disdain, in the midst of her despondency, in the midst of her anguish, in the midst of her struggle with only what her eyes could see at the moment, she shifted her position from standing and bent over to look into the tomb. How many of you know that to stare down injustice, to fight against patriarchy, to dismantle homophobia, to make sure that equity accompanies equality, we, like Mary, will have to shift our physical position to affect our perspective. We will have to both weep and bend. And as she peers inside, she sees 2 angels who ask, "Why are you crying?" And she responds, "Because they have taken my Lord, and I don't know where they've laid him." Still weeping, she turns to find the risen Jesus. Only she doesn't know that it's Jesus. She believes it's the gardener, with whom she begins to plead for directions on where to find her Lord. Jesus says to her, "Mary." It is the familiarity of the calling of her name that removed the veil from her eyes. Names carry energy, and at the hearing of her name, she realized whom she was speaking with. Excited, the text suggests that she attempted to embrace Jesus, and he tells her, "Do not hold on to me because I have ascended, but go tell my siblings that I am ascending. Not that I have ascended, tell them that I am rising, not that I have risen." Let me run that back so that we know. He tells her, "Don't hold on to me because I have not yet ascended, but go tell my siblings that I am ascending, that I am in the process, not that I have already ascended. Tell them that I am rising." Jesus, I hope y'all get it because I don't have time right now to go back and unpack it because I got to go to church. But that I am rising, not that I have risen. And here it is. In Jesus's marching orders to Mary, he says, "I'm on my way. I am going now. I am mounting. I am climbing. I am soaring." It means this, friends. Here it is. Y'all ready? What the folks say? Watch this. Here it is. It means this. That resurrection is a process. I'm going to let that sink in. That resurrection is a process. It is not a one-time event. The resurrection is fluid. It is not static. It is non-binary. So good, Melva, that it eclipses both time and eternity. In this pericope, then, weeping represents giving up, holding on, and resurrection beckons us to holding on to not giving up. Y'all need me to run it back. That's right, Takia. That's right, Takia. Y'all need me to run it back. Let me run it back. Come on, Dr. Monica. You see it, our process theologian. Resurrection is a process. It is not a one-time event. Resurrection is fluid. It is not static. It's non-binary. It eclipses both time and eternity. But here's what I want to run back. That in this pericope, weeping represents giving up, holding on. When she is weeping, she has to now give up holding on to what was. Shit, this is good. My God, today. Hey, Jesus, RG, this is good. Y'all, I don't know if we're going to make it to the clearing because I really promised these babies I was going to go to church and I got to put my church clothes on, okay? I got to put my wig on. I got to get my church. I'm trying. And I didn't mean to stay this long in this word, but here we are. That weep standing in front of the tomb, Mary now has to give up holding on to the physical representation to what she believes has been the only physical representation of a new paradigm. And while she has to give up holding on, the resurrection then that is in process beckons us to hold on to not giving up. Mary then embodied a disruptive weeping. Hold on, let me run this back. There's so much in here. Yes, Dr. Marilyn. So, because if you missed it, I just queered the resurrection. Just in case you missed it. I just acknowledged it as a process of queering. But Mary then, what is she embodying? She is embodying a disruptive weeping. A weeping that brought the risen Jesus to her. A weeping that called forth the resurrection. And so here we are with Mary, stuck outside the tomb, unable to go in. experiencing an existential crisis of our faith. If y'all want to know why I'm smiling, my man just walked in here. Hey, stuck outside of the tomb, weeping, unable to go in, experiencing an existential crisis of our faith, asking, what is it all for? So can I continue with my confession this morning? I don't know about you, but I'm stuck. I'm stuck weeping. I'm stuck weeping at the tomb. I thought by now that the lynching of society's most vulnerable would have lost its sting. I'm stuck weeping at the tomb that Joe Biden quietly approved billions more dollars to go towards bombs and weapons for Israel to continue to obliterate Gaza. Quietly, no fanfare, but just we woke up this morning and Friday morning, and this money had been approved and given. I'm stuck. I'm stuck at the tomb. That the United States participation in the demise of Haiti still reverberates. That this is, it may not be explicitly, but what they are experiencing now for me is a result of the way in which the United States has attempted to use. I'm stuck. I'm still stuck at the tomb weeping. Yeah, I'm stuck. But listen, it's hard not to shrink back in this hour. An hour that for some is taxed by the agonizing threat of whether they will make it home on any given night, albeit because of their race, their gender, their sexuality, or their immigration status. It's hard not to fall off the justice-seeking wagon in this hour, because when families are continuing to cave under the stress of forced layoffs and mass incarceration and unfair sentencing policies and the effects of white body supremacy and anti-blackness that deems all other bodies a threat, whereby they are easily killed by law enforcement and others because they are considered dangerous. It's hard for one's spirit not to wane or weaken in this hour under the weight of the myth of a post-racial America, the ongoing crisis facing the relevancy of hallmark institutions like the Black church and historically Black colleges and universities. Oh, make me want to holler the way they do my life. This ain't living. This ain't living. It's hard not to grow weary, not to become anesthetized and lose spiritual and emotional ground in this hour when schools nor churches are safe from gun violence, when private homes and public businesses are bombed by sometimes mentally ill but often hate-filled individuals, in an hour when the fruit of our wounds are too soon and too often becoming our ancestor, in an hour where a proposal for teachers to carry guns in the classroom is actually a viable consideration, where the concerns of urban youth are only made valid when the voices of higher class and privileged body youth become the national voice. It is hard. It is hard to find communal promise and to stand in faith in this hour while watered down presentations of the gospel of Jesus, of the disinherited and the Christ of salvation go forth with wild abandon, while pious preaching void of communal responsibility continues to pimp the people like puppets. It is hard to willfully persist in this hour when we are confronted with hashtags and times and movements bringing attention to rape culture and experiences of sexual harassment and assault of women, from the presidents all the way down to local pastors. It is hard in this hour not to constrict when half-baked policies coupled with bureaucratic backlash begin to give way to spiritual amnesia and political impotence. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. But the direction of our celebration should be toward the disruption into a system. In resurrection, we receive the strength not to give up. And because resurrection is not static, because resurrection is gay, because resurrection is non-binary, because resurrection is a process, because resurrection is fluid. Come on and tell me who the real spiritual spiritual gatekeepers are. Gatekeepers at not keeping us out, but gatekeepers as having the ability to stand in the two-ness, having the interpretive lens. Y'all better catch what I'm dropping. You better pick it up. That resurrection promises a future for those who are not here. Resurrection is the disruption. So we celebrate not simply because he got up, as we say in the black church, but we celebrate because the empty tomb contradicts a foul system. In Jesus' resurrection, we receive a future for the dead, for victims of history that will be restored. And Joe says this, that resurrection is our commitment to realign ourselves with the dead and those prematurely dying amidst us. Not about a transcendent moment, but resurrection is about our realignment. Holding on to not giving up is about our realignment, not to give into the existential crisis of faith. Hey, God, but every time we speak the name, we call forth, and when we resurrect the memory, it is that which gives us a profound sense of hope to keep moving. Resurrection comes to expose a corrupt system. So as you go forth on this morning, my good, remember one thing. As we remember, we disrupt. As we remember, we disrupt. As we utter their names, we too disrupt. We re-member. Residue still remains. Linens were left behind. There's still work for us left to do. See, we like to say Jesus did all the work. But Jesus left the linens. That's the work behind. The body is not here, but the memory is. And when we decide to remember the disruption, my God, follow me. The resurrection is the vehicle to following. The way in which we call forth an expected faith in the midst of night. The resurrection, it serves as our marching orders. So again, we celebrate not the transcendence of our pain, but we celebrate that our marching orders are clarified. Innovative disruptors. The resurrection gives us the ability not to give up. The linens are still there. It's the baton handoff. That's the question the resurrection leaves in our spirit. The questions that should be in our spirit with the resurrection is not, I won't say what it's not. Let me say what it is. The question that the resurrection, the occurrence of the resurrection should be leaving in our spirit is who got next? Who's rising next? Who's taking the linens? See, we've engaged this in a very individualistic practice of our faith that is only concerned about whether or not me as an individual rises. Who's going to stand in solidarity with the executed God who is now in process of ascending? This is what is at the root of the celebration. It's not a disregard for the need for a momentary reprieve. The only way reprieve comes is when we disrupt. When we finally become woke enough to realize that none of this matters if my entire community is suffering. Resurrection is not an escape. Takia! Resurrection is not an escape. Yes, Robin, ecclesia. So, what are we leaving from here? What's our end here? That as we reflect on this powerful narrative and its relevance, that we remember that the tension between sorrow and hope is a part of our shared human experience. And that by embracing the transformative power and the transformative process of resurrection, hope that is disruptive, we can find our strength to disrupt in our collective struggles and work towards building a more just and compassionate world. And in the words of the psalmist, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Oh, listen, it's going to be like a 15-minute clearing, y'all. But for those of you who are not members of the clearing, that is our subscription community. But you want to be, you want to come over with us every Sunday after PRC. Usually we're over there for about 90 additional minutes on a private Zoom, engaging, talking back. And then we have a private Facebook group where we continue the conversation. Today it's really only going to be about 10 to 15 minutes because I really want to keep my word, RG. I think it means something to my baby girl. For me, it means something for her, for me to go to church with her, even though she knows I struggle with some types of preaching. And I also want to say to her that I can put down, I can rest my critique and rest all of that because I have what I need in my heart to stand and to go and to be with her, because at this time in her life, apparently this is what she needs. That I'm not going to rush to get her to where I am, because it has taken me at least 20 to 25 years to get here, to get to this part. And so she should have the benefit of going through all of the steps that I went through. But the beautiful part about her benefit is that she will have someone like me and someone like her dad who won't just hush her and tell her to be quiet when she hears something that's theologically troubling, but that she will have us to affirm and or to listen. And in the meantime, though, if this is where she wants to be, then I'm going to show up right beside her, and I'm going to show up and stand there and be with her and walk with her, so that there is no disruption. I'm also going to cover her to be clear, so that no spiritual foolishness would come her way. So it's only going to be for a few minutes, but for those of you who want to come and you have not, here it is. This is how you can subscribe. All right, I'm headed over. Go forth, y'all. Resurrect.